Okay, so we're going on a quick ride. I'm already 7.5 miles into a ride today. The first 7.5 miles I recorded with my Insta360. But I wanted to try and get between 15 and 20 at least miles at least today, so we're recording with the phone because the battery ran out on the Insta360. Which is fine. I need to start recording shorter videos. But like I said, I've said it a couple of times, I really do enjoy talking while I'm walking or riding or doing something. Because it keeps me busy, allows me to hear my thoughts, I guess, in which case I get a chance to process things differently than when you're just thinking about them, because different parts of your brain and all that. And two, especially when I was downtown Denver and stuff, I like to showcase the city that I enjoy living in. Tomorrow will be the 18th of October, 2025. The No Kings rallies will be going on all over Colorado. I looked at the official website earlier today, and there are No Kings rallies going on even here. This is Parker, even here in Parker. Now, the one in Parker did not have an address listed. You had to go through an application process in order to get the details. And I understand why, because Parker, Douglas County, Elbert County to the east, and El Paso County to the south, huge Trump supporting areas. I have friends that live in Parker who are fairly liberal, and they actually do get scared about supporting certain politicians or having bumper stickers, signs, or even wearing certain t-shirts because they're scared of the repercussions or the reprisals they'll get from their neighbors, or just people out, kids out for mischief. You put a sign in your yard supporting Biden or Harris or anybody running against Boebert, and suddenly you become a target. And it has happened. So yeah. Anywho, you could probably hear the wind. It's not nearly as windy as it was yesterday, which is why I didn't really ride yesterday. But it is still a little breezy, so let's go do this, just because it looks fun. Again, we're riding just to ride. We're not riding for any particular purpose. And I'm recording just because, I'm out here in this giant park or open space, however you want to think of it. And, the leaves are changing, and this is what Colorado looks like when you're not in the city. I don't think I can get up there, but let's try. Oh, I'm going to fall. Oh no, I got up there. All right. Cool. I thought for sure I was going to stop halfway up and not be able to catch my balance or anything. So yeah. And then we're going to go north for a little bit, because with the other camera we went south. Like I said, I'm going to try to record some shorter videos, upload 20 or 30 minutes, which is my personal sweet spot when I'm watching videos, unless I'm watching a documentary or something, or an investigative reporting. But yeah, now there are times when I'll sit down and watch an hour-long video, or more importantly, I'll listen to it while I'm doing something else. But yeah. So, and there's a giant pole. I don't know what exactly it is, like a radio pole or something, but unless the tower itself is an antenna, there's no other like line of sight antennas or anything on top of it. No cell phone antennas that I can see. So I have no idea what it actually does. Could be a weather station for all I know, but I don't think it's a weather station. Those are usually dome shaped. But yeah. Oops. Oh, okay. I thought they were going to continue running over here. I was worried that we were going to run across them. So you got the pretty colors, if that's your thing. Now, I grew up in Florida, as I've mentioned before. So I grew up where it was green year round. Let's do that. I wanted to pedal a little harder, because I wanted to go a little faster, but I put it in a higher pedal assist, and then I realized that was the wrong choice, so I put it in pedal assist 2 again, and then just up the actual gearing. Whew. So yeah. But I plan on going to at least one of the No Kings protests tomorrow, preferably the one in Denver, because that'll probably be the biggest one. I was reading an article written on Substack this morning, which I don't know what the back end of Substack is like, but it's basically Blogger and WordPress all over again, just without all the customization, as far as I can tell. So people are writing on Substack where they used to write on Blogger or WordPress or Tumblr or whatever. But I don't know what the benefits of Substack versus any of those other things are. But I know it started with like reporters and serious content creators looking for a way to financially support their writing without having to do advertisements through Google or somebody else. Getting pennies on the dollar as opposed to getting the whole dollar, or most of the dollar. So I think that's like the only big benefit. But I don't know. I really don't. If somebody does know, explain it to me in the comments, because I don't. But I was reading it, all the things that you should do in order to protect yourself if you go to any of the No Kings protests, because they're going to have, everybody's terrified that the cops are going to come in and start beating people. And, unfortunately, that may need to happen. Not that, the cops would be justified. And when I say cops, I mean local police, I mean state police, I mean federal law enforcement agencies, I mean any of them. Whether that's ICE, the FBI, the CIA, anything. Civil disobedience, Martin Luther King's message didn't get out until TV showed the cops beating peaceful protesters. Gandhi's message didn't get out until until people saw the reaction to the peaceful protests. We've seen what's happened in Portland already. We're seeing what's happening in Chicago right now, and other places. And I read an article the other day that said, the Supreme Court, apparently Amy Coney Barrett did an interview where she insinuated that the Supreme Court is struggling to justify some of the decisions they are going to make in favor of presidential power when Donald Trump is abusing the presidential power in a way that no one has ever seen before, at least not in the last 150 years. So, yeah, because they gave the presidency near absolute immunity from any kind of actions that a president might take, because 6 of the 9 justices believe in a unitary executive. They believe in a king or tyranny for the United States as opposed to a balance of powers. But apparently she said something along the lines of, somebody asked, what will happen if they make a decision against Donald Trump and he ignores it and does what he wants anyway? And she said, nothing. The court does not have an enforcement arm. So there's no way, which we all knew. Anybody who took, high school civics knows that the court does not have an enforcement arm. That's up to the executive to do, or the Congress to force the executive to. But we have an executive because of the Supreme Court, because of the same Supreme Court that says they don't have any power to enforce anything, are saying, oh well, too bad, so sad, about, I'm going to bump up the pedal assist here just to get up this hill. Oops. Oh. And down on the pedal assist. But they said they have no enforcement power, so they're, basically stating that their decisions are useless. No president in the future ever has to abide by a Supreme Court decision because they gave the president immunity, and then said, there's no way for us to enforce it if the president abuses his immunity. So what's the point of a Supreme Court then? Except to keep, the rest of us in line. So yeah, we've already had a couple of constitutional crises that, the Biden administration just dropped the ball on. And from what I read, I don't know how true this is, but from what I read, somebody who worked in the Biden White House said Biden was very upset at how Merrick Garland was handling the whole Trump thing. But Biden was an old school politician who you do not publicly, argue with your own administration. So, yeah. He didn't want to be seen as infighting, or that he had made a bad decision or whatever, which is, old school politics. But, you can't confront or defeat. How you doing? Our slide into fascism by just sticking your head in the sand and ignoring it. And I think Kamala Harris owns some of that too, because, some of the campaign speeches she gave, some of the, she warned everybody about what would happen if Donald Trump got elected again, but she didn't say what she would do to prevent anything like a rise of a fascist dictator ever again. She didn't really push too hard at any point. Oh, excuse me. She didn't really push too hard at any point to say, I'm a new breed of politician. I'm going to do things differently. She said, she repeatedly said, I agree with everything Biden is doing, and I'm going to do more of the same. Which, don't get me wrong, under other circumstances, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, Biden might have been labeled one of the best presidents of our time because of, he was a great administrator, a great executive. He was able to get things done, the bread and butter things. He was able to just make it happen. But after 4 years of Donald Trump, 5 if you count the campaign season, he did not stand out enough. He did not defend himself enough. Democrats, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, I've said it for decades, Democrats suck at messaging. They don't know how to get out there in front of the people. They keep trying to patronize people. And they're absolutely 110% wrong about the people. Because listen to a Democrat talk. They do something that Republicans are not afraid to do. Democrats do not offend anybody. That's their whole shtick. Do not offend anybody. Don't say anything that might be offensive. Don't act in a way that somebody might take as offensive. Remember when Hillary Clinton got lambasted for saying, deplorables? She was right. She was 100% right. But you can't say that when you're a Democrat. You can't say, these are bad people. So she got lambasted. Same thing happened to John Kerry when he ran for president. And has happened, remember when, what's the dude's name? He used to be the DNC chair. He was running for office. He was actually doing pretty good, and then he did that scream thing on stage. It was just a scream of excitement, but the media ran with it that it was embarrassing, blah blah blah, and he ended up not winning his campaign, but also stepping down as the DNC chair because he was embarrassing. I'm sure other Democrats came up to him and said, yeah, we can't have that. But yeah, that's the point. It's Democrats suck. And then when they do get some firebrand voices, when they do get some people who will stand up for what they actually believe and say it out loud, I'm looking at you, AOC, and a few others who will call it like it is. They still get shut down by their party. They get told to tone it down. They get told to not bring it up, etc. So, yeah, Democrats suck at messaging. They got great ideas. They want to instill policies that will help everybody. But they have... So, this is a trail that I used to walk on when I used to live over here. And it's one that we've been on once before when I switched the tire out. But I just wanted to go on it today because, like I said, we're just kind of wasting time trying to squeeze in some mileage. So we're going to go down to the end of the trail, turn around, and come right back. That's all we're going to do. And then we'll keep going north a little bit. Because I'm only at 11 miles. So if I do 3 more miles, then it'll be 6-mile return, and that'll get us maybe to 18 or 19 by the time I get back to where I'm parked. So that's what we're doing. Sorry, I have something in my throat. But yeah, so anywho. Yeah, Democrats are just, they're terrible at messaging. Republicans downplay everything into a small slogan that can get carried away by a crowd and put on bumper stickers, blah, 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 trying to make everything seem simple when they know full well that it's not simple. They know it's not. But they say something simple, lock her up. Build the wall. And they go on TV and they parrot it. I wanted to say parrot it, but then my mind kept going to parody it. But they go on TV to parrot it. They say these slogans over and over and over again, and it gets the base riled up because, what the Democrats are starting to realize, because I actually saw an interview with one the other day where he actually said, these people are not smart. Because typically Democrats will come out and they'll be like, oh, the American people are smart. They understand this. That's the patronizing. The American people are not smart. Decades of cutting funding for school. Decades of restricting what kids can learn in school. Decades of lies by people like Rush Limbaugh and what's that other dude's name? Alex Jones. Fox News, and now your new right-wing medias like your AONs and whatever else is out there. Decades of, misinformation that people believe because they don't know better. And the Democrats aren't out there educating anybody. They're out there trying to fundraise. Why do you think, if you remember when Donald Trump ran the first time, and I think when, I thought there was a, yeah, we'll go over here and turn around. I thought there was a little loop through the grass here, but I think the grass overgrew it. So we'll just come up here and turn around. I'm not going to tell you which house, but one of these houses over here, I might be house sitting at in a month. So expect to see more of these woods. They're going out of town for most of December, and they asked if I interviewed with them to see if they wanted me to stay at their house and watch their pets and stuff. So yeah. But yeah, decades of false information. If you remember during the George W. Bush years, and definitely during the first Trump years, and during the Obama years too, the right was always talking about coastal elites and Ivy League educations like it was a bad thing. Like being smart, being educated was somehow a bad thing. And they doubled down on it. Now it's fake news. Anything they don't like because it disagrees with them is fake news. Doesn't matter how true it is. Doesn't matter how much empirical data is there to support it. Doesn't matter if you show them an actual clip of, disproving something that they believe. They just call it fake news. They don't want to see it. They don't want to hear it. They want to live in the lie. They want to believe things that aren't true because it's more comfortable for their minds than it is to for the cognitive dissonance that will contradict their views. And therein is where the Democrats lose, because they won't educate. The Republicans pushed through that education bill under George W. Bush, No Child Left Behind. The Democrats have never tried to overthrow it, have never tried to undo it, have never tried to, pass a law changing it. They never have. They're like, oh yeah, we don't care if people don't learn anything. And here we are. Because Democrat, they look at under Biden for 2 years, they had a Democratic president and a Democratic Congress. They could have got stuff done. They could have closed some of the loopholes that Donald Trump exploited. They could have impeached Clarence Thomas for taking bribes. They could have impeached Kavanaugh for lying to Congress during his confirmation. They did none of that. Excuse me. Hey, puppy. Yeah, they did none of that. They tried to put their heads down and get back to work, which was noble, but you can do two things at once. It's noble to say, there are things in this country that need to be fixed, such as the Build Back Better and the infrastructure bills and things like that. Oh, I'm not going to make it. I didn't have enough momentum. Because there's another trail down here that I used to walk on, and I had every intention of going that way, but it's overgrown and I didn't see it until I was past it. So then I tried to go uphill and I didn't have enough momentum. Whew. Again, 80-pound bike. Big fat guy. So, yeah. Well, at least my doctor thinks I'm healthy. I was looking at this little thing off to the left here because I remember walking around there, but I don't remember where the trail comes out over here, or even if it does come out over here. It might just be a loop in the trees over there. But anywho, yeah. So, and that's one, and I think I've said this before, that's one of my biggest concerns is if Democrats are able to take over Congress in 2026, because, everybody hates Trump, even Republicans right now hate Trump. I mean, most of the ones in politics have hated Trump, but Republicans have shown themselves to be, just the biggest cowards that this nation has ever known. Absolutely cowardly, every single one of them. They will not stand up to a bully. They are so fearful that he might say something negative about them and turn his cult on them that they keep their mouths shut, they keep their heads down, and they're just waiting. I mean, Mitch McConnell, who is the architect of everything that we see happening right now, via his holding Supreme Court seats from Obama and then giving extra ones to Trump by violating the own rule that he created. He is quoted as saying, I read this article way back in 2020, that after the January 6th insurrection attempt, he is quoted as saying, the Democrats will take care of him for us. In other words, they knew the Democrats were going to impeach Donald Trump, and they could literally wash their hands and, still claim to be good Republicans by not joining the fight, because the Democrats would do the dirty work for them. They did not like Donald Trump. And instead of jumping on the bandwagon and looking out for this nation first, the Republicans decided to take a step back and not stand up for the United States, not stand up for the nation, not be patriots. And here we are. It says all cyclists must dismount. They can bill me. So yeah. Oops. Alright, we're gonna turn around because I don't want to get in the way of all this construction. I guess it's only 2:30. I thought it was later because the sun. I didn't realize they were running equipment over there. Oh, I just turn around. It's fine. Thanks, though. So I told the guy I didn't realize they were running equipment over there. And he said, oh. And he looked confused. And he looks around the corner real quick and he goes, oh, you can go around that truck. It's fine. And I was like, nah, I'll just turn around. It's fine. I'm good. Yeah. So, anywho. Yeah. So So basically, the Republicans created this monster, and they unleashed it on the world, and now are so terrified of the monster they created that they won't do anything to rein it in. And then the Democrats have no power. They just don't. People keep asking, well, why aren't the Democrats doing anything? Well, that's because the Democrats have no power. They don't control even one house of Congress. They don't control the presidency. The Supreme Court gave Donald Trump, or gave the executive, the power to unilaterally fire department heads and people who are supposed to be protected, or positions that were supposed to be protected from political influence. The Supreme Court said, no, presidents have the right to do this. Now watch. If we ever get a Democratic president again, and I'll explain that here in a second, and the Democratic president comes in and tries to do the exact same thing, the Republicans are going to throw a fit. They're going to be like, oh no, you can't do that. That's not the rule. And it's like, no, you guys did it. Donald Trump did it. You guys supported Donald Trump doing it. It even went to the Supreme Court, and the Republican Supreme, or the conservative Supreme Court said, because technically they're not political party people. I'm using air quotes you can't see. But they will, what was I saying? So I'm trying to follow my train of thought so I can get back to where I was. Oh yeah, they're going to be upset. And it's like, no, you guys did this. You guys forced this rule change at the Supreme Court level. So there's nothing, you don't really get a say in it. You can't really claim foul ball when you guys work to change the rules to get rid of foul balls. So yeah, it's just it's astounding to see this country sink so far so fast because people keep electing cowards. Oops. Excuse me. And then, you got to get into the whole gerrymandering conversation about why certain people keep getting elected. And then you got to, which the Supreme Court has, I think they got a case right now about gerrymandering districts. And they're about to overthrow that too. Not overthrow gerrymandering, but overthrow any kind of restriction to gerrymandering. Which is undemocratic. You cannot claim to be a democratic state with gerrymandered districts. You just cannot, because that's not people electing their representatives. That's representatives selecting their people, and that's not how democracies are supposed to work. But nobody in the history of this country has tried to overturn gerrymandering. Well, I mean, legislatively, because all Congress has to do is write a law. No gerrymandered districts. Done. It can be a short law. No gerrymandered districts. Districts must be in accordance with population, blah, 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 blah. But nobody ever has. Because both sides love their gerrymandered districts, their safe spaces. I mean, look at Colorado. We have Diane something. I forget her name. She's Colorado District 1, which is basically Denver. She is in an incredibly safe seat. She is 100% useless. But she is in a safe seat, and she's been in that seat for, I think, longer than I've lived here, and I've lived here for 26 years. So she doesn't have to do anything. I mean, she votes along party line, but that's all she does. She might make it onto the local news to talk about an issue that's important to her, but she doesn't call out Republicans. She doesn't call out her own party when a party makes mistakes. or leans in the wrong direction. She doesn't bring new ideas to the table. You know, she's everything the Republicans complain about Nancy Pelosi. You know, she's just holding a seat down. And it's a safe seat. She needs to be primaried. And I believe this election cycle, somebody is primarying her. You know, a younger person who is kind of the same thought process I am, that, you know, she needs to be primaried. She needs to go on record and defend her position instead of just being in a safe seat, instead of running unopposed. So we'll see what happens. But she, you know, people don't like change. That's why you get people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Oh, excuse me. She just won her, you know, primary challenge against her primary challengers for Northwest or Northeast Georgia. She is a vile, disgusting human being. She has nothing nice to say about anybody except Donald Trump, and that's only until recently. Because recently she's been calling out Trump and the Republicans for refusing to fund healthcare only because her brother, I think it was her brother, maybe it was her brother-in-law, but her brother said, hey, if this goes through, I'm going to lose my healthcare. I won't be able to afford, you know, I will go into medical bankruptcy. And she's like, oh, so this affects real people. Okay. So she started talking about, you know, supporting healthcare. But, you know, once this fight is over, she'll be right back to saying her vile, disgusting conspiracy theory things. And why do conspiracy theories stick? Sorry, something ran through those trees over there. Conspiracy theories stick because people don't know any better. And that comes back to that education thing where we talked about Republicans cutting or changing education to the point where, you know, people aren't thinking, they're not taught to think, and they don't have the proper facts, they don't know how to look up the proper facts. For example, I saw, I don't have TikTok, but I saw it imported into Google earlier, or into YouTube earlier. There was a woman on TikTok who posted something here in Denver about Denver's got you know, we have elections coming up in a few weeks. And it was about a bond issue that Denver was asking the citizens to support. You know, help us raise $500 million that will go towards infrastructure improvements to include this area, that area, etc. One of those areas is near where the new football stadium is purportedly going. Okay, so she got on TikTok and she said, oh my God, you know, this is a way to steal taxpayers' dollars and support, you know, the building the football stadium, which I'm against. The football stadium that, you know, Denver built back in the early 2000s, because it was right after I moved here, that the Denver taxpayers spent money on, is still a perfectly good stadium. There's nothing wrong with it other than, you know, the Broncos want a new stadium. Well, that being said, there was an article in one of the local papers. I don't know if it was print or if it was just an online paper, but it did say that where this stadium goes, this new stadium purportedly will be going, will need some infrastructure improvements around it to account for the new traffic. So widening roads, maybe adding another bridge across the river or widening an existing bridge. Let's go this way. You know, building out electrical and sewer and water and all this other fun stuff. This is all stuff that will need to happen, and, you know, the owner of the Broncos might be willing to make his stadium privately funded, probably because, you know, Denver came back and said, no, we've already bought you a new stadium. You can, if you want another one, you can go build it yourself, which hopefully that's what happened, because billionaires need to be told no once in a while. But, you know, but all that other stuff will fall on the city. Now, there is something called the cost multiplier. I think it's called the cost multiplier, the spending multiplier, or something like that. Basically, it says for every dollar you spend, this is how much, for every dollar you spend, you get X plus or X times in returns. So, for example, if you spend $1, you create $1.35 for the economy. Now, this, the equation changes, but this is basically what it is. It's like if you spend $1, you get $1.35, $1.40, or maybe under certain circumstances you get $2 or $3 into the economy, and that's why government spending is actually a good thing, because it improves the economy. It's basic Keynesian economics, for those of you who studied economics. Which I didn't, but I studied political science, and political science, you do study some economics. So there's the dollar multiplier. So if Denver spends $500 million on infrastructure improvements, it might generate, $750 million, $1.25 billion in revenue in economic benefits for the local economy. So it's actually a good thing. But people don't understand that because, again, the education in this country is so bad. I mean, I didn't understand it until I went to college. And I've met other people who went to college who still don't understand it. And now you got people, and I've heard this for decades. I have some Army buddies who said almost verbatim to me, I don't see what the point of an education is. I don't see the point of having to, go to college and learn art history and learn music and learn science and learn this and learn that. I just need to know what I need to know. Okay, I'm going to turn around real quick because that was weird. I saw a helmet, and I thought maybe it just fell, somebody stuck it on their bike and it fell off. But then I saw a little bicycle for like a kid, but I didn't see any people. Oh, there they are. Okay. So yeah, there's a little helmet right here. There's a bicycle down there if you can see it, and then there's some people over there. But I didn't see them when I went by, so just want to make sure there wasn't a kid swept away in the water or something. Or a kid out here on their own, or a lost kid. So yeah. But this woman put this out there on TikTok, and I guess it got thousands of views. That, Denver's trying to sneak one past the citizens. But then everybody in the Denver economic world came out and said, no, that's not what's happening at all. This is what's happening. So she made a follow-up TikTok saying, I was educated. I was shown how I was incorrect. This is what's actually happening, etc. Don't worry about, my previous TikTok was factually incorrect. And then she made another one that said, oh my gosh, that first TikTok I made about this subject, where I was wrong, has tens of thousands of views. But my follow-up, where I apologize for being wrong and set the record straight, only has a few hundred views. And when she said that, all I could think to myself was, she just learned firsthand that a lie will travel around the world faster than the truth will. And that brings us right back to Republicans and conservatives and their, conspiracy theories and their inability to want to believe facts, because facts are not salacious. Facts are not controversial. I mean, they might be, you might dispute them, but they're generally not controversial. Empirical data is empirical data. How you interpret it is up to you, but empirical data is just empirical data. Or as the saying goes, you are entitled to your own opinion, but not your own facts. Well, the right wants their own facts, regardless of what is actually true. That's why the Trump administration has been systematically shutting down any department, agency, office, or anything that works in facts. You don't like You don't like the jobs numbers? Well, get rid of the department that reports the jobs numbers. Then it's not an issue. Oh, hey, puppy, what's up? How you doing? You having fun? You having a good walk? Okay. That dog just looks so happy. I love me a happy dog. But yeah, just, I mean, it all comes full circle if you haven't figured that out yet. But most people don't understand it. Most people are too busy watching whatever reality TV or, streaming whatever popular show, binge watching whatever popular show they want to watch. They're not paying attention. Newspaper subscriptions are down significantly. Nobody reads the news anymore. They want to get it from a meme. They don't want to read the details. They don't want to read the facts. They don't want to make decisions. They want to read, what they want to read. We'll go this way, and then we're going to try and take this other trail over here, which will take us back to hopefully where we started. So yeah, I mean, the whole thing, it's just a system that crumbled because Republicans don't actually like American freedom. And they haven't. Not since the 90s. Because, the 90s and earlier, Newt Gingrich and Trent Lott, not since those guys. Because before that, it was, here are the facts. We can interpret them whichever way we want, but we agree those are the facts. Then after that, they just started leaning into misinformation, spinning things to where they can control the narrative a little bit more, telling you that anybody who disagrees with them is a liar, etc. And now you have an entire generation, almost 2 generations of Americans that grew up lying. I mean, as somebody, I watched a young guy on YouTube. He does political commentary. He's liberal. He's actually far more liberal than I am. I don't consider myself a liberal at all. I consider myself relatively moderate. But he's like, yeah, he goes, I'm 22. He goes, most of my, adult life, from my teens up until now, has been dealing with the lies Donald Trump has been saying and the way that he's been governing. We have a whole generation that's being raised right now that doesn't know what good governance is. And that he said was one of his greatest fears, was that, we're going to see more, hopefully not another Donald Trump, but we're going to see more Republicans out there, and maybe even a liberal. I mean, we'll see. This is what I wanted to show you guys. Nice little view here. We'll take a shot here. So yeah, earlier I went on a trail on the other side of this, but this is pretty. I actually should bring my camera over because it looks really nice with all the colors. Oh, but yeah, he's like, yeah, and that's what and that's my point is, since George Bush, since the No Child Left Behind, we have an entire, 1.5 generations of people who don't understand what they're talking about or what they're hearing because they've never been, they don't have the knowledge foundation to understand what they're doing or what they're talking about or what they're hearing. So instead of voting for politicians based on what's best for the country, what's best for their local economy, what's best for civil rights or international relations or whatever, they're voting for personalities. Because, we live in a personality-based society now where, the dumbest person in the world can have the biggest following on social media because they have a boisterous personality. While the smartest guy in the room may not get any traction on social media at all because they're too busy talking about talking about reality, talking about facts, talking about things that, the other people are ignoring. And I see it with my niece and nephew. They watch some asinine YouTube channels. They're like, oh, look at this, Uncle Jason, isn't it great? And I'm like, no, that is one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. Oh no, it's hilarious. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, remember the TV show Jackass that was real popular? That's a perfect example. People with big intellects were not watching Jackass. Sorry, they just weren't. But it was supremely popular. Look at that Duck Dynasty show. Smart people were not watching Duck Dynasty. Sorry, they just weren't. Sorry, I'm listening to new noises on the bike. I don't know if it's dirt or debris or, the bike just needs to be washed or what. Yeah, Kardashians, hip hop in Atlanta, or whatever that show's called. First date marriages, whatever these shows are called. They're not helping anybody make good decisions, but they are showcasing how you can be a terrible human being, but as long as you're likable, or you get that media attention, you are suddenly the person everybody wants to pay attention to. And that's how Donald Trump won. He was on a TV show. He played a part. That was his whole shtick. He played the part of a decision-making executive, where he came off as, I never watched the show. I saw clips and stuff, where he, like, you're fired. But apparently, the people that worked with him, the people that were on the show, all hated him. They thought he was disgusting. They thought he was crude and crass, and he wasn't very smart. But the way that they edited it, the way that they put it out to the people, he came off as apparently a powerful presence. And so when he said, oh, I'm going to run for office, people carried that over. And they said, oh yeah, no, he's a great decision maker and an executive, blah, blah, blah. They didn't see the theatrics behind the scenes where they made those decisions. Where where it was a producer who said, fire this person. Where it was an executive producer who said, okay, this is what we're going to do. Blah, blah, blah. Where, Trump was just a puppet to the whims of everybody else. So, apparently there were a couple decisions that he made against the producers, and they just rolled with it because it's reality TV. That's what you do. You can't unring a bell. But by and large, as we all know, there's no such thing as reality TV. It is scripted chaos. That's all it is. They may not have actual lines, but they have producers going, okay, start a fight with this person. Start beef with that person. We need some drama in here. You know what? I know you're interested in that person. Go over here and flirt with this person. We need some drama. And Donald Trump did that. And by all accounts, in his first administration, he thought he was on a TV show. He thought he was playing a part. And this time around, he's got his puppeteers again. He's got his, what's that Nazi's name? Miller. He's got people like Miller filling his ear full of BS. He's got other people that are like, making decisions. Blah, blah, blah. That's why, if you ever watch an interview with him, he's like, oh, I don't know. I'll have to look into that. I don't think I can answer that question. Blah, blah, blah. He's not making decisions. People around him are making decisions, and he's just getting all the praise. But we are just about back. So I am going to cut this off. Thanks for listening to me. Hopefully you enjoyed the view, and we will chat again hopefully in a day or two. Bye.